Hi, Maurice Beckand Verwee. I'm the founder of Curiosity. And before I started as a VC, I first worked at a VC for a couple of years, learned a lot, learned also that in that time I didn't want to become a VC or a full-time VC employee. So I set up some companies myself from 2005 onwards. With that money, started some angel investing. From there, also started investing in some funds. And in the end, I ended up as a VC. But now with a different kind of an experience to also help our portfolio companies. I've been coming to the Baltics for, I think, 8 or 9 years now. I've been investing in some companies in the region, and I'm very bullish about this region and happy to collaborate with the people over here because we see a lot of potential here. We invest in B2B SaaS companies with an AI angle, and that is one of the reasons why I was asked to tell you something about it. Artificial intelligence, many people of you probably have read about it, what it is, etc. For me, my first encounter with AI was more than 20 years ago when I was working at the VC. We had one portfolio company who had the, let's say, idea to help people to prevent that their feet need to be amputated. Apparently, a lot of people with diabetes who are of older age, they have the, they lose the feeling of the bottom of their feet. And what they were preparing was a foot scanner where you could put a foot on, it would scan the foot, it would then analyze the picture with yesterday's pictures or a few days before to see if there was any major change there. Back in the days, it was quite early, and for them it was a big challenge to get it to a next level. So unfortunately, the company didn't make it, but it really triggered me that apparently you can use data. You can analyze it as if a human is looking at it, but in a better way. And if we look at today's world, look at the technology where we're now standing, way more things are possible. And therefore, I'm bullish on AI. We've seen a lot of discussions nowadays in the news about this, let's say, economic downturn. And we also see it with the companies that we invest in. You see valuations go down, you see pressure in many ways on the company itself. But what I also would like to emphasize that during these times, a lot of good companies have been born. And here you see some of the examples from Europe that have been started in these economic downturns. So what I would also like to emphasize that people be positive as a community, as investors, but also as founders that take now the effort to set up something because I believe beautiful companies will be born. Not only because it's an economic downturn, but also because AI is helping many to create more simple a company. What is important if you start using AI, and I have some examples later on, is that you also play around with it. And one of the things we did in the office when I was asked to give a small speech here was, okay, what is now available to create something? So as you can see, ChatGPT you can go to, some other tooling like the Gamma to create the look and feel, and within 30 minutes you have a presentation. Is it perfect? Certainly not. Because the funny thing is, when we asked, for example, ChatGPT, which companies were successful during or were started during an economic crisis, they mentioned Just Eat, but they also mentioned that Just Eat was incorporated in Denmark, started in Denmark. I know one of the founders of the company itself, and it is a Dutch company. So this is also important when using information to create something, that you always double check the information. This is the result that we got from the Gamma. So we used some slides out of it, but we also learned by doing. The impact of AI, I think, in daily life, we all notice. In work, in school, family life, you hear a lot of people talk about it. And I would like to point out some of the elements that you see also in daily life, how it could impact yourself, your job, your company. For example, streamlining job processes. A friend of mine, he works for the government as an external consultant, and he's quite open that he doesn't do that much work. But now he's using AI in a very good way, and apparently he also doesn't do that much, but now he's doing it with 50% of the time available. So imagine if you're serious about it and you use it within your company to produce kind of new efficiencies, you can save way more money than you're already saving by just using some simple tooling. And that's also the reduction of the operational cost, therefore. It creates opportunities. So keep that in mind. The creation of opportunities for growth, what we've seen is also in studies that now 20 to 30% is expected by the big companies to get growth from implementing AI. And of course, the bigger companies, it sounds like a small percentage, but if you're a smaller company implementing this, for sure, there will be way more savings to be made, but also revenue to gain. And one of the things that we also have seen, not only within our own portfolio, is the service. So the customer support, customer service, you can reduce the cost quite tremendously, but improve the quality of these services. And therefore you see also with AI, when you implement it in the right way, there's money to be made, but there's also a higher, let's say, net promoter score to be gained. The adoption of AI is not easy, for sure. So therefore, it's good that you understand how you can implement it as a company. One of our portfolio companies is advising or has a Dutch fintech as a client, Bank they're called. Bank is being run by a multiple founder who set up different unicorn companies, and he's obsessed with planning. And his obsession for planning is also working in his advantage. He has this know your customer system that he thought was better than what was expected from the local authorities, the regulators. So what he did, he built an AI model which he could use to explain how it's working, and that it's being done in a responsible way, and that he rather works with his own system than what is being pointed out by the Dutch government. It ended up in a court case, funny enough, because the Dutch government just said, okay, we would like to see that you implement it the way we do it. But because he had a strong plan, he was able to explain what he was doing as a company. He won the court case. And it's an interesting thought, of course, if you think about it, that systems are being developed or regulations are being developed by governments. But apparently, if you're capable of showing what you're doing and therefore proving that your product is way better than what regulators are suggesting, I think you can have a case there. But of course, it asks a lot of adaptation for yourself to create this plan and be able to explain it to the counterpart. Let's put it like that. Let me see. Of course, it's not a walk in the park. That's also what we understand. And one of the big challenges, for example, is data. And it's not that you can easily get this data, which is structured, which is clean, which is annotated in the right way. And you also have the big boys who have a lot of data. Imagine you have, for example, Google, Facebook, Meta, I should say, and the other big ones. They have databases of more than 1,000 billion of words that they use to train their models. Wikipedia, for example, they only have 4 billion words. So imagine that if you want to get into those markets and use those technologies or build something competitive, you need to think of it on how to do it in a structured way and a cheap way, because it's not cheap. There are ways to buy maybe that data, but I would say pick your battles. And that one, well, I don't know if I would invest in. One of the other challenges is, of course, the cost to create something, to implement something. And a nice example is one of our portfolio companies called Alpha 3D, which is an Estonian company. They convert 2D images into 3D models. And what they've done is they collected a group of clients where they built the 3D models for, and they say, okay, we need 3D modelers for that. So you pay for the 3D models, but we can use then, or they can use, those 3D models to train their AI model, which is making it quite, let's say, reasonably cheap for them to train a model and therefore build the company. It's Another option is, and that's also what you see with, I think it is Adobe. They have 1 billion of images that they can use to train Firefly. And in the earlier days of Midjourney, which isn't that long ago, people were thinking that Adobe would not have a big market share anymore. But the funny thing is, because Adobe had this big database that they can use to train their technology, I wouldn't say they outsmart Midjourney, but at least they don't feel that much competition from these new challengers in the market. One of the things also to keep in mind is the employee resistance, and not because within your company, because most of you are smaller companies and everybody is willing to do some cool stuff, but it's more on the client side and partner side that you will see this employee resistance because it doesn't feel right, and is this AI taking over my job? So things to keep in mind when you develop your product and also when you develop your marketing and sales strategy. And of course, the lack of skilled talent it's a general kind of challenge, not only for AI, but within the company itself. The risks that are connected to it, you really need to keep them in mind. And I would like to share one example from the Dutch government that years ago, they created a system which selected people who were allowed to receive government allowance. And the thing is that because they created a system that was changed a couple of times, and in the end, nobody could explain anymore what kind of decisions the system was taking based on what, so they couldn't explain, it ended up in a lot of court cases, and now the government needs to pay millions to all these people who were allegedly earmarked as criminals because they were playing around with the information. They weren't honest towards the government agencies. And this is a big thing now in the Netherlands because it still hasn't been settled. So make sure that you understand the risk of what you're doing and be careful with the information that is going through your systems. I would like to share two examples of companies that we invested in that have a different approach on how they have implemented AI. One of them is Neepel. And what is Neepel's idea? That they make it personal. So you can create an AI, you can create an AI bot, but the thing is they make it a colleague. And the funny thing is that they are able then to say, okay, this AI is Bart, and it's helping with HR questions, and it becomes a new colleague of a team that you're implementing it for. And the good thing is that they see that therefore they can counter the resistance of employees because they feel, okay, we have a new colleague, good to see. And let's train the colleague, let's help him to become better, improve. So it's an interesting way to approach a challenge that you will see when you're selling your product. Another example that I would like to share is Luna. Luna is a company that is making email automation, sales email automation for medium-sized companies and small companies. The thing is, what they, from day one, are doing is designing a company that, preferably with maximum 20 people, they become a unicorn. And not only their product is really interesting to see, but it's more also how they design the whole company by itself. And I think also, if you look at the opportunities that are there now, it is possible today. Look at the tooling that is out there, but preferably also design it, as mentioned earlier, in a way that you and your strategy is ready to get it to the next level. Also at Curiosity, we make sure that we keep on innovating. And here you see an overview of the processes that we are using to also make our life easy. And when you reach out to investors, I know that many also of the investors that are here today, they're all playing around with how can we use the assessment of the startups and the companies, the deal flow, how can we automate it to make our life easier, but also deliver quality to the people that are reaching out to us. Of course, you can also rig the system, therefore, if you know a bit how the system works. So this is just a test setup, so you can't rig it based on this. But it's indeed also, when you're looking for money, important to know what are your stakeholders doing in this field. I would like to finish my talk with that I'm really bullish on AI, of course. I see some challenges on the regulation part, on the ethical part, but I do think now is the day to start something, and I hope you all start implementing it from day one to have more European companies that bring it to a next level in an ethical and responsible way. Thank you very much.